I wanted to bring to the attention of the Senate that last night the House passed the bill that we modified, the U.S. Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act. It will now go to the President to be signed into law. This bill contains the language that we helped to negotiate as a compromise between two different bills that had passed the House and the Senate earlier this year. And this bipartisan legislation, which passed the Senate unanimously, is a major effort that recognizes the tremendous growth of the commercial space industry. It's an industry that now represents more than 75% of the $330 billion global space economy. $330 billion. And it's an industry here in the U.S. that will continue to grow as more companies enter into new and exciting space ventures, such as launching thousands of small satellites that will provide worldwide internet access, such as recovering valuable resources from distant asteroids, such as sending tourists on incredible journeys that one day may even include overnight stays in space hotels. Now, these are the innovative kinds of commercial space activities that this little country boy dreamed about years ago when I had the privilege of helping pass the first Commercial Space Launch Act way back in 1984. And it's an industry where we are really starting to see a resurgence of activity here in the U.S. For example, just 10 years ago, there was only one American commercial space launch, compared that time to 8 launches from Russia and 5 from Europe. But last year, there were 11 commercial launches, accounting for nearly half of the worldwide commercial launches and earning $1.1 billion in revenue, more than both Russia and Europe for the very first time. And much of this growth has been seeded by a commercial industry supporting the needs of our space program, and in particular, the International Space Station. Folks just do not realize we've got an International Space Station up there right now that's as long as from one goalpost on a football field all the way to the other goal post. That's how big this thing is. There are 6 human beings up there on orbit right now. 2 American companies are now supplying the International Space Station with critical cargo and supplies, along with our international partners. And soon, U.S. companies will begin launching NASA astronauts and international partner astronauts to the space station. And that's why this bill is so important. It paves the way for NASA to begin launching government astronauts on American-made commercial rockets, so that we do not have to depend on our crews getting to and from the space station just on the very proven and reliable Russian Soyuz. Commercial companies are also making great use of the space station for medical research, and one company is even 3D printing tools right now on the space station. And so the bill extends the operations of the International Space Station to provide certainty to industry and to the international community that the station will be around not just to 2016, not just to 2020, but now, as we put it in the bill, at least to 2024. And I think what you will see efforts later on that will even be extended beyond 2024. And that is fitting that I mention that, because this month we are celebrating the 15th anniversary of continuous human presence aboard the ISS. 15 years we've had humans up there on a round-the-clock basis. The commercial space sector is also revitalizing old government infrastructure, such as the historic launch pads that line Florida's Space Coast. It's been a privilege for me to spend some time there at the Cape and at the Kennedy Space Center. And it is an amazing transformation of Cape Canaveral into a bustling spaceport. But I've seen how challenging it can be for commercial companies to get to do business out there on the Air Force territory. And that's why this bill requires the FAA, NASA, and the Air Force to work together to reduce the administrative burden on industry operating out on government property, and to do that by streamlining the federal launch requirements and processes. And so, Mr. President, this bill is a major update to our commercial space legislation, and it will encourage the growing commercial space industry for many years into the future, an industry of vital economic, scientific, and national security importance. Mr. President, I yield the floor.